Hey there. We're reading through the book of Job. Thanks for listening. This is Jacob, my YouTube channel, and we're going right through the book of Job. This is not a scholarly study. If you want some brainiac and somebody who's been to seminary, by all means go listen to them. But this is just a reading of the word. I'm calling it a washing of the word. And that stems from Jesus washing his disciples' feet in the book of John, and commanding and urging us to do likewise. So I just let this word be spoken and just ring true in your life, and just feed off it and let it wash you, because all the TV and what the world throws at you, it's a big lie. It'll never be true until God restores, makes all things new, and creates the new heavens and the new earth. So that day is approaching and it's coming, but in the meantime, we got to trudge through this life and trudge through the barricades and the false lies and the things that are impure. And one way to be pure is by reading the Word and letting it wash you. So that's why I'm calling it washing the Word. We're in Job chapter 41, where God is bringing up a huge theological debate, and something that modern day scientists and scholars, they just can't wrap their heads around. But God is talking about the Leviathan in chapter 41. In chapter 40, God brought up to Job and spoke to him about the behemoth, a giant dinosaur. And here we are in chapter 41, and Job is speaking to Job, which is terrifying. And I say terrifying because if you have any wisdom in you at all, and wisdom is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And if you have any fear of the Lord, you have some wisdom. And if you have any wisdom, you will understand how terrifying the presence of God is. And so much so, God warns Job and says, brace yourself. God says, brace yourself like a man, Job. I will question you, and you shall answer me. And so God is speaking to Job out of the storm, out of his creation, because he can. God is spirit, as we know, and he's speaking. So chapter 41, God pulls out another card out of his hand, out of the deck, so to speak, and brings up the Leviathan. Here we go, chapter 41, verse 1. Can you pull in the Leviathan with a fishhook, or tie down his tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through his nose, or pierce his jaw with a hook? In other words, God is saying, I can do all these things. I created these animals, and I know how to orchestrate them. I know how to control them. I know how to do all these things. And I have the ability to do that. But he's saying to Job, can you do that? And the answer is obviously no. And another thing to think about is God is not talking to Job about animals he has no clue about. God is talking to Job about a Leviathan that nowadays, if you're a young kid, you have no clue what a Leviathan is. But Job clearly understood what a Leviathan was. And in chapter 40, when God brought up a behemoth, an ancient dinosaur, Job clearly knew what a behemoth was. So God was not coming down and speaking to Job in a language that he could not understand. He was speaking and meeting Job right where he was at and speaking incredible things. So here we are about the Leviathan. Verse 3, will he keep begging you for mercy? In other words, God's saying, I can pin Leviathan down, this great big beast. Will he speak to you with gentle words? Will he make an agreement with you for you to take him as your slave for life? Can you make a pet of him like a bird, or make him or put him on a leash for your girls? Will traders barter for him? Will they divide him up among the merchants? Can you fill his hide with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? If you lay a hand on him, will you remember the struggle? You will remember the struggle and never do it again. Any hope of subduing him is false. The mere sight of him is overpowering. No one is fierce enough to rouse him. Who then is able to stand against me? God is saying, if you can't even handle this animal, this piece, this creation that I can do whatever I want with, if you can't handle that, how on the world or in the heaven are you going to stand against me? That's what God is saying to Job. Verse 11, chapter 41, verse 11, he says, who has a claim against me that I must pay? This is God speaking. Everything under heaven belongs to me. I love that verse. I love that verse so much with a verse that says the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And here in Job is another verse that declares that everything under heaven belongs to me. Ray Stedman has a saying that is also rings true in this same thing. He says, nothing coming from me, everything coming from God. And that's the way it is in the Christian life. Everything is God's, everything. And there's nothing on earth or in heaven that is not created by God. It all belongs to God. Verse 12, I will not fail to speak of his limbs. He's going back to the Leviathan here. I will not fail to speak of his limbs, his strength and his graceful form. Who can strip off his outer coat? Who would approach him with a bridle? Who dares open the doors of his mouth, ringed about with his fearsome teeth? His back has rows of shields, tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. They are joined so fast to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. Look at the intricate details of this animal that God created. Verse 18, his snorting throws out flashes of light. His eyes are like the rays of dawn. Firebrands stream from his mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from his nostrils as from a boiling pot over a fire of reeds. His breath sets coals ablaze, and flames dart from his mouth. This is an incredible being. Verse 22, strength resides in his neck. Dismay goes before him. The folds of his flesh are tightly joined. They are firm and immovable. His chest is hard as rock, hard as a lower millstone. That's a beautiful description. A lower millstone would be a millstone that is on the bottom and the base of a building, something that supports all the rest. Verse 25, when he rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before his thrashing. The sword that reaches him has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron he treats like straw, and bronze like rotten wood. Arrows do not make him flee. Sling stones are like chaff to him. A club seems to him but a piece of straw. He laughs at the rattling of the lance. His undersides are jagged potsherds, leaving a trail in the mud like a threshing sledge. He makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron, that stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. Behind him he leaves a glistening wake. One would think the deep had white hair. Nothing on earth is his equal, a creature without fear. He looks down on all that are haughty. He is king over all that are proud. Incredible. I love that last verse, king over all that are proud. And I picture this big, giant, amazing creature that is just terrifying. And he's king over all that are proud. All that would come against him, he just melees. But it's also saying he's not king over those that are not proud. In other words, maybe little dinosaurs or little tiny things that didn't get in his way and didn't bother him. Maybe birds were on his back and he wasn't king over them. He didn't reign over them. That's kind of a beautiful thing. But these two chapters, chapter 40 and 41, really are incredible revelation of God. And we need to remember that the book of Job is thought to be the oldest book in the Bible. And based on the language and the literature, I would assume so. And that's something to be said. It totally blows away all the scholars and all the people that believe in evolution and don't want to believe in God. Anyway, we're coming to the very end in chapter 42 coming up next.